back to the Banderpod, the mindful and magical podcast of Bandersnatch Books. We are a small press publisher of treasures found off the beaten path for lovers of all that is good, true, and beautiful. I'm Annie Beth Donahue, and today I'm talking with Mary Barrows about Joe the Fourth. Mary Barrows, welcome to the Banderpod.
Hey. Hi.
All right, let's get right to it. We're talking about Joe the Fourth, which is your middle grade book. Can you tell us what your new book is about?
Yeah, so Joe the Fourth is about Joe the Fourth, who's a young 11-year-old boy who's the unlikely hero of a story type character who sets off on an adventure and some wild and crazy things happen along the way, but his ultimate goal is to get to school because that's kind of his main excitement. What he thinks is a great adventure is to attend school, since he lived in a family he was the ignored son of the family and never got to go to school. So that's his exciting idea of an adventure.
I love that. His idea of an exciting adventure is to go to school. That there's a book promoting going to school as the ultimate adventure. I'm sure parents across the world will appreciate that. What inspired this story? Was there like a specific event or moment or something that happened in your life that sparked the idea?
Yeah, so me and my siblings like to have random conversations about like book story ideas, and one day we were talking about the seconds and thirds of families who you're often named after something really cool sounding. So you'll be like Charles Barkley III or something, and it's a really epic sounding name, which is why it's passed down so many times. But kind of the opposite of that is someone like Joe, just being, that's all your name is Joe the Fourth, and it's just a simple, weird name to hand down. So that definitely kind of started the conversation of what would this kid be then. He's not quite the fourth in this family. He's the fourth son named Joe in the same family, but yeah, that's kind of the start.
So not the fourth generation, but just the fourth son also named Joe.
The fourth son, yeah.
This kind of reminds me of the George Foreman thing. George Foreman named all of his sons George.
Okay.
So who do you think will especially love this book? Who is it for?
Kids who like the adventure stories of unlikely heroes and kids who like weird fairy stories of adventures and magic and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was talking about this with Rachel Donahue, one of the other, and we were talking about where does it fit on our bookshelf? Because this would be what I would consider a lower middle grade because it has illustrations, which we'll talk about soon. Mm-hmm. But for us, it's probably in between The King's Messenger, which is a lower word count. Chapters are contained stories. Like you can read one chapter and it's a full story, but the whole thing is cohesive. And then No Clues You Lose on the other side, because yours is going to be a great stepping stone between these two. We often say The King's Messenger can be a read aloud or a child, one of their first things that they're reading themselves. Joe the Fourth is like that next step where there are more words. It's a more complex story, but there are a lot of illustrations, and that's going to help the new reader get the context of the story. So can you tell us a little bit about those illustrations? Where did they come from? Who made them? And how did you decide where they belonged on the page?
I mean, I have been working as an illustrator for the past 10 years, so this was kind of one of those projects where it's like, I also want to write stories and stuff like that. So it was kind of a combination of both of my passions, writing and illustrating. It's fun to illustrate your own thing as opposed to what somebody else has you do, because it's all your own imagination, and no one tells you what you have to draw. But yeah, deciding on illustrations was kind of just, I love the books that are full of pictures. Like that's always what I liked as a kid. So trying to fill it with as much illustrations as I could, and just spreading them out throughout. So there, every couple pages there's going to be a picture to continue the story along.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask. Did you kind of have, I'm sure it wasn't strictly calculated, but you probably had a feel for every couple of pages you wanted there to be an illustration. You don't want to go too far into the book without there being another illustration, right?
Yeah. And I had a couple scenes in mind that I really like when he shows up at the inn fairly early in the story, is that kind of was a picture in my head of that. So there's a couple spots throughout that I had a picture already in my mind, so those were locked in, and then I just tried to fill in the gaps. But yeah, I kind of broke it up, I laid it out a little, in a rough layout just to see, there's a long stretch with no picture, what can I put here that would help this section?
Yeah. So you mentioned you've been an illustrator for 10 years. Tell us a little bit about that.
it's not what I went for school for or anything. I started out as a early childhood development major in school, so always wanted to work with kids and that kind of thing. Did that for a couple years. Was going to leave that job because it wasn't a great situation. And I was just really encouraged by friends and family around who were like, you're really good at art. You should give this a try. And I had taken a couple art classes and that kind of thing in high school and in college as electives and stuff. So I had a little bit of background in it, but not enough that I feel like I was super professional at the time. But I just started getting into freelance art, found a couple jobs right off the bat, which was really nice. And just finding self-publishing authors looking for pictures for their book and have been doing it since then.
That's really cool. So you were doing your art thing, and then you had the inspiration for this book and said, okay, well, I can do both of these things. I can write the book and I can illustrate it. Why not? Is that what happened?
I think Joe the Fourth has been around about as long as I've been illustrating. Like I technically probably started writing him like 10 years ago. So I think when I started it, maybe there was a dream eventually I'll be good enough to illustrate it, but I think it was more meant to be the story at that point.
That's interesting to know. The story actually may have come first, and then your illustration skills developed, and eventually you got to the point where you realized I could illustrate this book myself. So, and I assume you came to that conclusion before you submitted to
Yeah.
Bandersnatch
Yeah,
Books,
like when
right?
I submitted, I was kind of like, I want to illustrate and write this book. Yeah, I want to do it fully at this point. Yeah, I felt like I had the skill in both writing and in illustrating at that point to do both.
So, how did you find Bandersnatch Books?
I believe it was just an Instagram post or something that. Oh, I think I found you actually. It was called the Rabbit Room with Andy Peterson. Like I
Hmm.
follow that kind of stuff, and it was like related to that, like as a page that popped up. And I kind of try to follow some of the smallerish, publishing companies, especially like the more Christian-based ones,
Hmm.
just to kind of get my name out there, see if they ever looking for illustrators or anything type thing. So I think at some point I had followed along. It just had a cool name. I just loved the Bandersnatch. Like I love like those kind of stories, and so yeah, that's kind of what started it. And then obviously somewhat you put up a call for authors. And I was like, well, and I think it's author and illustrator. So I'm like, I'll just throw in for both, and we'll see if you, if
Yeah.
something comes of either side of this. Like, if you like the story, great. If not, hey, I'm an artist, and if you ever need me, I'm here too.
Yes, that reminds me of what happened with our mystery writer, Katie Mitchell. She actually submitted a sci-fi and kind of threw in the mystery as a side thought. Like you're saying, like, okay, well, I'm an illustrator. Also, I have this book. I could illustrate it too. Yeah, well, either way, whatever works for you. And then it turns out, like in her case, we picked up the mystery, which was the second thought rather than the first thought. And for you, we're taking the package deal of
Yeah.
author illustrator. So what is your favorite either chapter or scene in the book?
I mean, just the first thing that kind of that came to my mind, just the interactions with the witch type thing. So I think that's maybe more my favorite, just because it's lasted the longest. Like other things have kind of shifted around a little bit, but that was an original thought that kind of has stuck around. And I just like witches and stories that are, they're the bad guy, and you know that they'll hopefully get their their due in the end. So that's probably my favorite scene. But I like a lot of them. So
Yeah. That reminds me in the conversation once again with the about murder mysteries and mysteries just in general, we had a conversation addressing bad things in books. Murders are bad, witches are bad, right? And do they have a place in the good, true, and beautiful? And our conclusion in that conversation was yes. And I'd love to hear your take on that because I think you were alluding to the conclusion that we came to. There are evil things, but they do need to get their due, right? Or if you'd give me your opinion on that, I'd like to hear it.
yeah, I don't know. I like a good written villain who's someone you want to see go down. I think that's the best books have the best villains who get taken out in the end. I think like those are the ones that are the most exciting to read, the most interesting to read. And I guess you can comment on life and that we like to see the hope that the people who are doing evil and doing bad things in this world will get their due in the end. I think.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very biblical theme,
Hmm.
that we know the end of the story, right? Like
Yeah.
we know who wins. So all of the things that we adventure through on the way to the end are bearable
Hmm.
and even, encouraging in a way because we know where the story is headed.
Hmm.
So while you were writing, Did you have any characters that changed from your first draft to the final version?
Yeah, 100%. Like a big character in this one, I feel like, is the writer himself. Like it's kind of written not as if I'm writing it, but as if the professor is writing it. And he definitely did not really exist as a character until I read like Lemony Snicket's. And I just love that idea of like the narrator also being more part of the story. And so that definitely like changed him as like more of a character. Not that he wasn't already a character, but had his own little voice in. And I think that's a huge part of the book. So he was a huge addition later on, probably like halfway through type thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good to know. And that's something interesting. This book is written with, I don't know, would you call him an omniscient narrator or how would you describe
Yeah,
the
like he's
narrator?
someone who's yeah, I mean omniscient and that's it. Like he has already lived it, so he's rewriting it with some perspective of like I know that this kid is worth something, which is why I'm writing about him. Yeah, omniscient, I guess in that sense. He's lived it already.
Right, right. Yeah, the narrator is one of the, I mean, I don't want to say like, oh, this is the best part of the book
Mhm.
because there are lots of good parts of the book, right? But the voice of the narrator is one of the most engaging aspects, I would say, of the book. It reminds me of Red Rex, which we have for middle grade, slightly higher middle grade, but that book has someone who transcribed a manuscript that they found. And so it's not exactly a narrator, but there are footnotes. So whether it's a narrator's voice or it's like this voice of the translator in the footnotes, it's just fun, I think, especially in children's literature, to have that, I don't know, to have that little extra voice in there, keeping us engaged and bringing in a different perspective. So you did mention that things changed during the writing process. So what is one of those like the deleted scenes that you secretly wish could have stayed?
Yeah, there was a scene with a girl who was just like a funny little like met her on the road and she was picking on that his name was the fourth and like where are you going forth to Joe the fourth, like it was just like a funny little like play on words and that kind of stuff, but she had to get cut out for time and I mean it made sense, it kept it going faster and stuff, but yeah, it was a funny little dialogue bit that had to get cut out, but I'm hoping to work it in maybe later in other maybe future adventures of Joe, but
Hmm.
she was a fun little character that had to get completely cut out.
Yeah, we love puns, or at least I love puns, I'll say. A punny character is always good. So, as the illustrator and the author, how did you did you ever have like conflicting conversations with yourself where as the author you wanted to do this or you wanted like this result or you wished this could be illustrated, but as the illustrator you had to say, well, no, I have these limitations or that's just not going to work. Most illustrators and authors work as separate individuals together,
Mm.
but you're working with
Yeah.
yourself. So how did that
No,
go?
I mean, I think there was less of that because I was fully in control. It wasn't like, someone going like, oh, I don't like how that person looks or whatever. You're just like, well, I drew him and this is what he looks like and I like him like this or whatever. So I think it was more freeing in that sense than working with an author. Not that I don't enjoy working with authors too, but there's, some that are a little pickier than others. And if anything, I'm not very picky. I mean, I'm a little picky. Like I wanted to make it look good because this is my book. But I feel like there's more freedom in that. Like I could pick which scenes I wanted, and I also knew the story really well. I think that also helps a lot. When an author hands you a book and you have to kind of
That's a good point.
like, oh, I forgot you mentioned he had a bag back in chapter 3, like because I haven't reread the story 20,000 times.
Right.
So
That makes a lot of sense. Know it.
I knew more of the story.
Right, exactly. And you don't have to try to interpret what you think the author
Yeah,
meant
yeah, yeah,
because you are the author. You know what you meant.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so as once again the author and the illustrator, how does your authoring and your artwork intersect with your faith?
I mean, I like working with authors who are also believing. I think it kind of adds a deeper connection to it. And then just, making things that are glorifying to God and giving him the glory through whatever I do. And doing it to the best of my ability and not doing it quick just to get it done type thing of taking that minute and being like, for his glory, not for stories that kind of teach biblical, ideas, even if you're not mentioning God, that they have good morals and good stories to tell. Yeah.
Back to the illustrations. As the illustrator, what materials did you use and how did you decide What was the medium that you wanted to use for Joe the
Yeah,
Fourth?
so I used a pen and ink style of kind of the style of the old books that we've most of us have read, like Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz and stuff like that. The very inky, sketchy, more detailed illustrations. So I just love that kind of style. So I wanted to bring that into Joe's book. So in the pen and ink style, I do everything digitally though. So it's done in Procreate using pen-like brushes that help me achieve that style without having to draw it on actual paper. But yeah, it's super nice. I can edit really well and stuff, really easily and stuff in digitally. So it helps speed it up, and also I can add way more detail into it. So I'm not drawing on a 2 foot page of paper. I can do it in a little 12-inch iPad that I have.
Yeah, that's really neat. It is also helpful for formatting purposes when the artwork is digital. It's easy to insert into the layout. So in the illustrations, is there anything that you want to make sure people maybe look for or notice? I always think, like in the little critter books where there was like a little spider and a little mouse. And as a kid, I always enjoyed looking for those in each page. Do you have anything in your illustrations where you're like, oh, this would be fun if they found this in these scenes or
I
consistently?
did not, but that would have been really fun to include. Because I always loved like like the Arthur books where he would always hide his kid's name in the book, and you would flip through it trying to find all his kids' names. But yeah, no, that would have been super fun to include. But no, I didn't put any hidden hidden nods or anything.
That's okay. I mean, there are tons of cute
Yeah.
things in the scenes. Anyway, I think you said the end scene was your favorite.
So the witch scene, which
Oh, the
is
witch scene. Yeah.
not quite the end, but I mean, I guess there's a couple interactions with the witch throughout, but
Yeah.
I would say the mid one is more my favorite with them.
What do you love about that? Is it because the illustration was fun? Is it because just the whole like the scene, the way it works together? Like what makes that your favorite?
I don't know, I think I just like a little bit of like the little nod to some dark humor, like not super dark humor, but just kind of a witch that's like, she knows she's evil, but she also is kind of a little quirky type thing, you know. Just kind of like that, like kind of character type thing.
How did you intentionally convey that in your illustrations?
I mean, I do in the fact that she wears some kind of weird things and stuff like that, from time to time,
Yeah.
but yeah, not specifically.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
was thinking. The quirky witch.
yeah.
Okay, so I heard you say that, you had a different career path initially. You didn't go to school for illustration, but you did get into it at the encouragement of your family. Does that mean you've been drawing since you were a kid? I mean, I guess they had to be aware of your talents.
Yeah, I've been drawing, like I always say, like since I was old enough to pick up a pencil or a crayon or anything, like I've been drawing pictures and stuff. And my family enjoyed, reading stories at night type thing, aloud to everyone. You had to sit there and do something while you listened to them reading a story, so you weren't just sitting there. So we read stuff like The Hobbit out loud, and while they're reading it, I would, draw pictures, and usually would then relate to that story. So I have a ton of like pictures from when I was really little of drawing. I love my Hobbit artworks that I drew as a kid of different scenes from the book. So I was illustrating before I knew that was a career path I could even take. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. You were already listening to stories and visually representing them on the page just just for fun, just as part of your experience with the book. So you did mention that you might save some content or bring back some characters in the future. Does that mean that you have more ideas for Joe the Fourth?
Yeah, I definitely have a second book already, like I would say roughed out pretty well, like some scenes and stuff written. And the girl from the first book was supposed to be kind of like a little Easter egg to later, but I'm like, oh, she can just be introduced later. Like she didn't need to be introduced now type thing. So she was definitely a character I was going to bring in later. So yeah, definitely the second book and maybe even like at least a third one to tie everything up. But yeah, I definitely have more ideas and thoughts of stuff that he could get into. And this is supposed to be just like the professor alludes to it a little bit, like, this is some of his adventures, but there's more to come type thing of he does all this in this book, but he does more great things yet to come.
So I'm going to end with a few popcorn questions. These are just kind of lighthearted questions. You can give an off-the-cuff answer. You don't have to think deeply about it, but there are no wrong answers. So if your story had a theme song, what would it be?
I feel like I don't know, it'd be like some like just jaunty little like fantasy sounding music. Yeah, not super deep fantasy, but just a jaunty little like fairy tale like sounding backtrack to it.
Yeah, you could probably grab some of like the Hobbit soundtrack or something
Yeah.
and throw that in there. If your main character, Joe, could meet any character from another book, who would it be?
He would definitely want to meet someone like very adventurous, who's done a lot of great things. That's kind of his, who he looks up to in the book is Bartimer. So yeah, someone who's super adventurous and really wants to be in the deep adventures. So I don't know, someone kind of like Indiana Jonesy like vibe, loves to get adventure and danger and comes out the other side type thing.
Yeah, we would say Bilbo Baggins, except I don't know if, well, yeah,
He's more reluctant though. I think
he
yeah,
wasn't going for the adventure.
yeah. I would think more like Aragorn or something would be more his like someone who's finding adventure type thing.
Do you have any pets?
Yeah, I have three cats together with my two sisters, so we all basically have a cat. And they're all named after fantasy or sci-fi characters that we've enjoyed.
Oh, cool. What are their names?
So we have Weasley, obviously he's an orange cat named after the Weasley family. We have Oswin, who's named after a character from Doctor Who. And then we have Fitz, who is, Fitzwilliam Darcy, from Pride and Prejudice. So, yeah.
Ah, that's really cool. All right, final popcorn question. What are you working on right now?
Um, just working on some projects for some self-publishing authors, and it's kind of my normal job is to work with self-publishing authors. In the background, always kind of just thinking what stories I can make of my own, stuff like that. Yeah, working other people's stuff, some of my own stuff. Just like to create, so whatever form that takes.
Well, Mary, it's been great having you on the Banderpod. We've enjoyed hearing a little bit about Joe the Fourth. We're excited to have Joe sitting on our bookshelf, and we've really enjoyed working with you as a publishing company. And we hope people will really enjoy both the story and the whimsical illustrations that go with it. And thank you to our listeners. May you find bookish treasures in your wanderings off the beaten path.
As a special bonus to this episode, we're going to include the prologue to Mary's book, Joe the Fourth and the King's Crown.
Joe the Fourth and the King's Crown. Recorded by Professor William E. Heranda, with the assistance of Mary Barrows. Published by Bandersnatch Books. To whom it may concern, and to those it does not, but who are nosy and are going to read this anyway, I see you have made the wise decision of purchasing my book. Either that, or you've stolen it, in which case, please put it back, as it is not nice to steal. In the following pages, you will find the happenings of a boy previously known as Joe the Fourth. I have written this account because there have been many false stories circling as of late about exciting and oftentimes outrageous events that have supposedly happened in this young boy's life. Having known Joe the Fourth for a very long time, I can safely say that these stories are not true. Joe's life was much more exciting than these tales have made out. To set the record straight, I have lent my services as one of Joe's oldest and most trusted friends. May these words be used to clear up any confusion surrounding this boy's life, as well as for the entertainment purposes of anyone wishing to read a grand and adventurous tale. Please enjoy, with my most grateful pleasure. Signed, Professor William E. Heranda, in the year 11,530. Chapter 1. A boy named Joe. Joe the Fourth. Now, where shall I begin? This is the hardest and most important part of telling any story, you see. For I could begin this story when Joe was still a baby, and all was right in his world. But if I did that, several chapters would be filled with nothing but messy diapers, sleepless nights, and incoherent baby babblings, all of which I'm sure you have no desire to read about, and I have even less of a desire to write about. So I suppose we shall not start there. If I wanted somewhere more exciting to start, I could tell you about the night Joe the Fourth was mysteriously removed from his own family and left in the care of another. This new family had 4 children of their own and no intention of adopting another, especially not a mysterious one, who was mysteriously left on their porch by a mysterious stranger one mysterious night. But if I knew more about that part of Joe's life, I would not have called it mysterious. Now would I? If I wanted somewhere sad to start, I could begin by telling you how Joe's adopted family completely ignored everything the young boy did. They never sent him to school, bought him shoes that fit, or gave him his own toothbrush. However, to start the story there would be rather depressing, so to avoid the most tears from my readers, perhaps the best place to start is by simply telling you who Joe the Fourth was, since I'm assuming you have not met him. When I first met Joe the Fourth, he seemed like every other 11-year-old boy in Havencrest. If you're not sure what an 11-year-old boy from Havencrest is like, I assure you, they are very similar to 11-year-old boys from wherever it is you're from. Maybe you're even an 11-year-old boy yourself, in which case Joe the Fourth was very much like you.
Thanks for listening in to our conversation today on the Banderpod. We hope you'll check out our full catalog at bandersnatchbooks.com. The Banderpod is produced by Rachel S. Donahue, A.B. Donahue, and Carolyn Claire Gibbons. Audio engineering by S.D.G. Morgan. Artwork by Evelyn Warnamundi. Many thanks to our friend Chris Slayton of Son of Laughter for our theme song, Cricket in a Jar. Find links and more in the show notes.